Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you in Athens and in the Greek Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport and Networks for the International Conference ITS, eCall and Road Safety. We are now proceeding to the first session, policy issue, and I would like to present the speakers in this session. First speaker is Mr. Antonino Zambara. He is a technical and scientific advisor in the European Commission in DG Connect, and he is going to present us the issue eCall, ITS, and in policy context. Mr. Zambara, you have the floor.
Good morning. Kalimera. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nino Zambara. I work for the European Commission in Directorate General Connect, in a unit which is responsible for smart cities and sustainability. And I would like to thank the Greek Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport and Networks to be given the opportunity to present here today. What I would like to do is to give some background policy information into which eCall is embedded at this moment in the European Commission. So eCall, and I think I should congratulate the Greek presidency with the achievements which have been achieved during their presidency in the eCall dossier. eCall is part of a bigger picture, and at the moment we see it as a part of the CITS, or the Cooperative Intelligent Transport Systems. Cooperative ITS means the interconnection of vehicles and infrastructure with each other, transmission of data, generation of data. This means that vehicles and infrastructure are connected to each other and this can lead to a new management of our transport systems, our mobility systems. So this could be on a very operational level, vehicles communicating with each other, avoiding accidents. But this also means, like with eCall, vehicles being connected to the infrastructure and improving safety on our roads. Basically, the European Commission is convinced that having vehicles and infrastructure connected will lead to a safer, cleaner, and more efficient transport system in our member states. It would look like this. As you can see on the picture, vehicles and vessels transmitting data, receiving data, infrastructure transmitting data, receiving data, in order to have the whole mobility system being more efficient, safer, and more sustainable. As you can understand, rolling out such a system over 28 member states and maybe beyond, for the Commission it's very important that these systems are interoperable, and for that we very much need standardization. And as we can see in the HERO project, important steps for eCall have been taken in the field of standardization. Talking about connected mobility, we are talking about smart mobility. And connected mobility means ICT. It means communication between vehicles and infrastructure. It means IT, computing power in vehicles, in the infrastructure, but also afterwards when data should be processed and should be used for future reference and future traffic management issues. This is fully recognized by the policy of the European Commission, and ICT is also a key enabler to solve a number of cross-cutting issues, such as system architectures, privacy, and security. The main policy tools the Commission is using to implement ITS I've listed them here, are the ITS Action Plan, which is part of the ITS Directive. where the Commission, in cooperation with the Member States, is trying to speed up the application and deployment of ITS in Europe. We have the Smart Cities and Communities European Innovation Partnership, in which, together with many stakeholders from the public and private side and from the scientific side, we are joining up in the platform which cities form. We are joining up ICT, mobility, and energy in the first phase. To give a very concrete example, with electric vehicles with a storage capacity on board, batteries, we linking those vehicles to a smart grid, to the electricity grid, we will be able to better manage the supply side and the demand side of energy in cities. Finally, I should mention our research programs, and HERO is a result of our former research program, FP7, the 7th Framework Program. Since December, we have opened a new research and innovation program, which is called Horizon 2020. And there we grant, the Commission makes available grants for research, innovation, standardization actions, and dissemination actions. And I would like to close my presentation by recalling some main achievements in the field of ITS. Obviously, I should start with eCall. I think we are going very much into the right direction, not only technically and organizationally, as HERO has shown, but also on a legislative level. And it has already been alluded on what legislative steps which are being taken at this moment. Another very important step which has been taken was in February, last February, where the two European standardization bodies, ETSI and CEN, they announced the first set of ITS standardization. This is ITS standard, my apologies. This is very important because this will allow vehicles of different makes coming from different countries to communicate with each other and to communicate with infrastructure in different countries and different member states. And I would like to stress that these standards have been harmonized beyond Europe to the US and to Japan. In the ITS action plan, 6 actions already have been completed, and I would like there to mention the multimodal travel planner and travel information system, and the standards for the safe parking places for trucks. Under the European Innovation Program Partnership for the Smart Cities and Communities, we have finalized a number of tools. We have finalized a strategic implementation plan together with representatives of member states of the private and public sector, an operational implementation plan, and since February we have launched the invitation to commitment. And this is a tool in which participants can present, not only to the Commission, but also to other stakeholders across Europe, their commitment to take steps in smart cities, or that can be also mobility. They can present their initiatives in a standardized form and gain visibility with it, showing best practices across Europe, and we allow stakeholders in this way to have a platform to learn about best practices and to exchange them and to take them up. And I can only invite you to have a closer look to this invitation to commitment, to have a look either at the website or to contact the Commission directly to know more about it. And proposals can be submitted until June this year. Finally, in Horizon 2020, which is a successor of earlier framework programs, as I just mentioned, there are multiple topics which are connected to cooperative ITS. So also there we see the potential, we see the importance of cooperative ITS, and we have made available grants, we have made available programs and frameworks to go further with cooperative ITS and to make sure that we step now into the stage of application innovation, so that we can take up these applications across the member states in Europe and go step by step further. And again, I have to stress that eCall is a very good example of how this could function. Thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, I suppose that later on it's possible to ask them. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Mr. Zambara for his presentation. Now we can proceed to the second speaker, which is Dr. Pέτρος Μάμαλης. He is the chairman of the Working Party on Technical Harmonization of the Council, which is currently elaborating the EU regulation on type approval of the requirements for the in-vehicle system, IVS. His presentation will focus on the issue priorities of the Hellenic presidency on eCall. Mr. Mamalis, you have the floor.
Good morning to everybody. Good morning to interpreters. Ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful for your kind invitation to participate in the International Conference on ITS, eCall, and road safety. I have the honor to chair the Technical Harmonization Working Party in the Council during the Hellenic presidency and to negotiate some very important files, such as Radio Equipment Directive, Transfer of Registration of Motor Vehicles, and eCall regulation. It is also a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to present to you, on behalf of the Hellenic presidency, the latest state of play and the latest developments in the Council concerning the negotiations of the eCall proposals. As you know, the European Commission adopted 2 new proposals to implement eCall in the EU on the 13th of June 2013. First, a proposal for a decision on the deployment of the interoperable EU-wide eCall, and second, a proposal for a regulation concerning type approval requirements for the deployment of the eCall in-vehicle system and amending Directive 2007/46. Regarding the interoperable EU-wide eCall service, we expect to reduce the number of fatalities in the Union, as well as the severity of injuries caused by road accidents. It is also anticipated to bring savings to society by improving incident management and by reducing road congestion and secondary accidents. In 2011, around 30,000 people were killed and more than 1 million injured in over 1 million traffic accidents on European roads. The cost to society were about 160 billion euros. In the context of the negotiations of these proposals, 2 different working parties are dealing with in the Council: the Land Transport Working Party for the decision and the Technical Harmonization Working Party for the regulation. When adopted, these 2 proposals will complete the eCall regulatory framework in order to assure that all new models of passenger cars and light-duty vehicles will be fitted with 112 eCall, and the necessary infrastructure will be developed for the proper receipt and handling of eCalls in public safety answering points. The Land Transport Working Party in the Council, which is involved in the proposal for a decision, has advanced in examining this legal act. A compromise was reached between the Parliament and the Council on the decision. Coreper 1 adopted the compromise proposal on the 19th of March 2014, and the European Parliament plenary voted in favor on Tuesday, 15th of April 2014. Let me present to you some of the decision requirements. Member States shall deploy at least 6 months before the date of application of regulation, and in any case no later than the 1st of October 2017, the necessary eCall PSAP infrastructure required for the proper receipt and handling of all eCalls. Member States shall ensure that the handling of eCalls is provided free of charge to eCall users. It is the right of its member state to let private organizations recognized by the member states deal with the receipt and handling of some or all eCalls. Member states shall ensure that data transmitted via the eCall service are used exclusively for the objectives of this decision. The Technical Harmonization Working Party that I am chairing is dealing with the proposal for a regulation. The purpose of this proposal is to introduce in the EC motor vehicle type approval system a requirement for fitting an eCall in-vehicle system. This legislation requires new types of passenger cars and light commercial vehicles to be constructed as to ensure that in the event of a severe accident, an emergency call to 112 is triggered automatically. Even if passengers cannot speak, as the previous speaker said, a minimum set of data with information on the accident is sent, including the exact location of the accident. It must also be possible to trigger manually emergency calls to 112. The draft compromise proposal in the Council also foresees that the owner of the vehicle can use a third-party service eCall system providing a similar service in addition to the 112-based eCall in-vehicle system. However, manufacturers shall ensure that there is only one system active at the time and that the 112-based eCall system is triggered automatically in the event when the TPS, third-party service, eCall system does not function. eCall does not prevent accidents, but improve the effectiveness of emergency services. When emergency services are promptly notified and know the accident location, they can arrive quickly and reduce the risk of death and the severity of injuries. Golden hour principle. The Hellenic presidency, right from the beginning, has given priority to the eCall proposal for a regulation. As you may be aware, the European Parliament voted its first reading position on plenary on the 26th of February 2014. Due to the early closure of the European Parliament, as you may understand, it is unlikely that we can have this proposal adopted during our presidency. However, the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee of the European Parliament will be able to negotiate again as from the 8th of September, the earliest. Therefore, our aim, together with the next Italian presidency, is to establish a Council's negotiating position by that time, so that the next presidency will be able to have trialogues with Parliament. Once the two institutions will come to an agreement, the Council will adopt its position at the first reading. After that, Parliament will adopt in the same wording as our position, its position at the second reading. This complicated procedure is called early second reading agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, road safety is one of the major issues within the European Union's transport policy. The EU is highly committed to reducing the number of road accidents, mitigating their consequences, and improving the efficiency of post-accident care. eCall can significantly contribute to reducing road fatalities and alleviate the severity of injuries. Thank you for your attention.
Καλημέρα κύριε Πρόεδρε. Ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Θα μου επιτρέψετε να χρησιμοποιήσω και εγώ τη lingua franca των ημερών. So, to continue the presentation, on behalf of the European Emergency Number Association, I would like to thank for the opportunity to present EENA's position on eCall, as well as the impact of eCall on PSAPs, Public Service Answering Points. The content of my presentation, and I will be very mindful of time, so some slides will just fly, will contain information about what is eCall, approaches to provide eCall, the eCall stakeholders, legislation, 112 models, and eCall implementation, experience from hero pilot sites, and conclusion. For the full presentation, I would probably need half an hour, and that's not possible. Let me start by some slides that you can find in the leaflet that you all have. And if you want to hear more, I'm sure that the presentation of Andy Rook will give you more. I have seen the presentation, so stick around for his presentation and details about eCall. But we need to understand some very basic facts. When talking about approaches to provide eCall, as we just heard from the previous speaker, you have a direct route to the most appropriate PSAP, but you also have third-party services, which gives you sometime more information. I remember Andy Rook saying eCall on steroids. Is that correct? I like that term, so I'm repeating it. But it has its challenges as well. Many stakeholders, I'm not going to dwell on that, as well as the hero pilot sites, you all know. 2 points about legislation, as was just mentioned. Regarding vehicles, the text adopted at the European Parliament on the 26th of February 2014, and now with the Council of Ministers, and we have the elections. So right now we're looking at June 2014 for a vote. And regarding legislation on PSAPs, we do have an accelerated procedure, but right now, and I'm talking right now as the footnote says, deployment dates somewhere between 2015 and 2017, so there is a vague date there. Am I correct? Please correct me if I don't have updated data. Now, in order to understand eCall, we first have to understand 112. And I do need to remind everybody that the legislation on 112 is a European legislation since 1991. We still have each national 112 system country-specific, and each one will decide how eCall will be handled in regards to the existing national 112 system. Allow me to do some compiling, and this is a disclaimer page, if you like, of the presentation. Try to give you some models of how 112 is operating around Europe as we speak. So having done the disclaimer and that we have simplified in EENA the models, let me just show you 5 models very quickly. And we have, first of all, the emergency response organization handling emergency calls, which is the old model of having 3 numbers and whoever has to call each number and all that. I would like to point at the last bullet point here, which says in a variant, 2 emergency response organizations are co-located and contacted via the same number. And you can see at the bottom for which countries this model applies. The second model is a 2-stage model, and you have an independent public service answering point, receives all emergency calls, and then forwards it to the local emergency response organizations, and call takers only ask the caller for which emergency service he/she wants to connect to. The third model is, again, 2 levels. The difference is the role played by the independent organization. So the civilian call takers classify the call. Number 4 model, you have 2 levels, but they're co-located in the same location. Civilian call takers, again, in charge of classifying the call and make a parallel dispatch of the calls to the most appropriate emergency response organizations. The final model is the emergency response organization independent PSAP model, which civilian call takers handle both call taking and intervention resources dispatch. The same PSAP is in charge of classification of calls, data collection, and dispatching the intervention resources to the incident. So these are, again, oversimplified 5 models of what's happening in 112 call centers around Europe. A variant which is independent of the model is the interconnected PSAPs. And by interconnected PSAPs, we mean if no call taker is available in one PSAP, the call can be redirected to another PSAP. And you can see at the bottom for which countries this applies. Let me try to summarize these. Again, we're looking at the state of the art for 2012 because that's when the last time we compiled data, and you can see the 5 different categories and the countries that are applied. Finally, for finalizing the model presentation of 112, you see the countries that have interconnected PSAPs and the countries that do not have interconnected PSAPs. I hope the colors with the bright light can be seen by the audience. Challenges, and in order to proceed, we have to be frank about challenges. False calls is one major concern, especially the button and how many people will be tempted to push the button just to see if it works. The cost and the quality of service and the training implications. What difference will it make? The obvious one, accurate location, vehicle identification, and it will change the landscape in the reception of emergency calls in general. Minimum set of data, I will not dwell on that in order to finalize my presentation in time. However, I need to show you the eCall models for receiving eCall that have to be interconnected with the models of 112 response, and that's the challenge. So model 1 for eCall, eCalls are routed as 112 calls, period. Number 2 model, all types of eCalls are routed to a PSAP only dedicated to eCalls. So you have 112 calls continue to be routed to 112 PSAPs, and then you have eCalls routed to eCall PSAPs. Then, of course, you have a variant, and the variant is manually triggered eCalls and automatically triggered eCalls are routed to a different PSAP. And, of course, the PSAP of 112 can also play that role. I will not show the slides for Romania because we do have the presentation from Romania. A little bit about strategy of eCall deployment in Germany. Because the country has specific 112 strategy for deploying, it's a very complicated model. I will not dwell on that as well because I have less than 1 minute to finish my presentation. Conclusions. As we all heard, starting from the minister this morning, eCall has been successfully tested. We do have still the current proposal, the deployment compulsory in 2016, 2017, and we do hope that the 2017 date would be the final push date and that it will be implemented. Deployment models need to be selected by member states. Take the 112 model used in your country into account when considering how it can be handled. And as I showed by the models of 112 and the models of eCalls, these have to be interconnected, and that's a challenge by itself. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello. My name is Rodánthη Sfakyanaki, and I'm going to talk to you about the new activities undertaken by the Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport and Networks, which are beginning in this month. These 2 new activities of the Ministry would be the National ITS Strategy and the National ITS Architecture. Today, we are talking about intelligent transportation systems. Well, If you have seen an electronic message sign along the highway that tells you how long it will take you to get downtown or to the airport, or you have paid your toll or your parking fees with an electronic tag, or ridden a bus that triggered the traffic lights to get green as it approached them, then you have experienced some of the benefits of ITS. Other on-the-ground ITS applications are less visible to the average traveler, but every bit as useful. They help traffic managers detect and respond to accidents promptly, handle the extra traffic that special events generate, and more. In fact, there is an endless list of applications already making travel safer and more environmentally friendly. Greece follows the EU policy by following the EU Action Plan for Road Safety, which focuses on a systemic approach and with the use of ICT, which is the core of ITS. Also with the adoption of the ITS directive and with the National ITS Action Plan issued for the period of between 2012 and 2020 by the Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport and Networks. And also by pursuing the adoption of technical specifications as delegated acts, which are issued by the European Commission. The recent actions are the deployment of the ITS strategy and the ITS architecture. These two activities will be designed for a 10-year period, namely for the period 2015 to 2025. The horizon, they are going to be fully deployed by the end of 2014, and their scope will be the entire territory of Greece. Of course, this is going to be with two working groups which were recruited with experts from the academia, the research institutes, the public sector, ITS professionals, and ITS users. The strategy and architecture, which will be drafted by the working groups, will be opened for public consultation at least once in order to improve their efficiency and transparency with the broad participation. How are we going to implement this? According to the international practice, no single organization has the capacity to deliver the national ITS strategy and architecture. These should be the work and the result of a cooperative approach amongst all stakeholders. The essential requirements are that national strategy and architecture must reflect the needs of all stakeholders. And of course, for this reason, we must use system engineering principles and of course assess and embed the results of related projects and events as conferences and workshops. But why do we need a national ITS strategy after all? ITS can help when safety, efficiency, and the environment are at stake. The national ITS strategy will ensure the seamless connections of systems and applications, the application of standards where these are required, the reliable users' information, and the optimization of the overall transport system. And of course, it will increase the safety and efficiency as well as the environmental protection. ITS strategy is an obligation stemming from the National ITS Action Plan, which was issued in 2012 from the Ministry. And of course, this is a need for us to obtain an integrated policy and a uniform legal framework. For all the above reasons, the ITS strategy is fundamental at national and regional level. Its main objectives. Within the National ITS Action Plan, the following main strategic objectives, as well as a set of national priorities, were designated. These were road safety as #1 target, sustainable mobility, effectiveness of transport systems, and their development and employment and cohesion. As for national priorities, these were the connection with remote areas and the islands, multimodality, and much more. This ITS strategy will draw upon the ITS Action Plan, the European Commission documents and the best practices, but of course this is going to be a new and broader approach. And how are we going to do this? When we talk about intelligent transportation systems, we may distinguish three main categories: the information systems, the management systems, and a set of technologies and automations. We're going to develop a set of dimensions, for instance, passengers and freight transport, urban, interurban transport, connection with the islands, policies, research, and many more parameters which are going to be defined from the working groups. The final result will be an analysis and assessment in order to decide the added value and the benefits with regard to the capitalization, the transferability, compatibility, and sustainability of the four aforementioned dimensions. The national ITS strategy will yield the results from the analysis of dimensions, which, along with the policy priorities, will formulate our 10-year strategic plan, and also will provide guidance for the development of ITS solution, and of course, they will determine the dimensions that will be given as input for the national ITS architecture. The expected results are applications that ensure interoperability, open interfaces to support compatibility and the exchange of information, the pooling of resources between users and businesses, the promotion of a strong and competitive market of ITS products and services, the intensification of the use of standards, which has multiple benefits, like, for example, the access to international technological solutions and markets, and of course, not to forget the direct benefits from the use of ITS, such as the technology transfer, research and innovation, the savings and the economies of scale, the reduced accidents and the environmental benefits as well. Of course, something very important that we expect to yield from the strategy is the development of coherent positions on our national priority projects in order for ITS investments in the future to reflect our actual priorities. I mentioned before that this is going to be with the application of systems engineering principles. At the first stage, we will have the identification of needs and objectives, which will formulate the first draft document to be opened for public consultation. Then it will be reviewed and may be launched for consultation once more, and of course at this stage it will derive the dimensions to feed as an input for the national architecture. The final document will be submitted for approval to the ministry. As for the national architecture, why would we need a national architecture? Well, first of all, this is an obligation also based on the National ITS Action Plan, and its main goal is to designate a fundamental national interoperable ITS structure. Through the deployment of ITS applications, as we mentioned before, the overall transfer planning is advanced, of course, and the deployment of a national ITS architecture is necessary in order to ensure compatibility of the existing systems with the new emerging systems. The expected results are architecture will create a common framework for ITS planning and design. This is going to be a mature product reflecting the contribution of the entire ITS community, like transport professionals, system engineers, and more. And of course, the ITS architecture will define the functions performed by the components and the subsystems, the scope of these functions, the interfaces and the flow of data and information which connects all the subsystems in one integrated, unified system. How are we going to achieve this? The national ITS architecture does not have to be generated from scratch. It is recommended that we introduce another country's architecture, which will be very close to the Greek model and our needs. Of course, it will need an adaptation to Greece's specific needs and requirements. The national ITS architecture will be implemented by the special experts working groups, which are recruited already, and will draw on the dimensions and priority factors that will emerge from the ITS strategy. And of course, it is going to be based on systems engineering principles in order to yield a final output that addresses real user needs. But can ITS do all this? And how can ITS serve the main goal of road safety? This is an example implying that through ITS and traffic flow optimization, through the speed control and enforcement, through the use of cooperative systems and the emergency response like eCall, we can derive benefits for the road safety. I am sure that all of you can contribute to this list and build a roadmap of how ITS can lead to increased road safety and all the other targeting. Thank you.
We'll have a short break of half an hour, and then we'll proceed to the next panel. Thank you very much.
Παρακαλώ έτσι ένα λεπτάκι να μην σηκωθείτε ακόμα. Ήθελα απλά σε σχέση με το βίντεο να ευχαριστήσω εκ μέρους της ομάδας Hero όλους όσους συνέβαλαν στη δημιουργία αυτού του βίντεο, δηλαδή το τεχνικό μας σύμβουλο, το EPCE, το Ινστιτούτο Μεταφορών, την εταιρεία παραγωγής Smart Drive DSP, οπωσδήποτε την πυροσβεστική, την αστυνομία και το ΕΚΑΒ, που άμεσα ανταποκρίθηκαν σε ό,τι τους ζητήσαμε. Ευχαριστώ λοιπόν όλους για την παραγωγή αυτού του βίντεο, το οποίο θα μας εκπροσωπήσει έξω στην Ευρώπη.